Hey YouTube, this is a bittersweet video for me and a second take, which I never do. I'm not a professional YouTuber. Um, I wanted to make this video. I'm doing it on the fly, no tripod, just freehand here with an iPhone. But I made a video a while back. I want to say a year or more ago, and I could be wrong about that, so don't come after me. I rarely post. YouTube's not my profession. I was a law enforcement officer. I retired in February after 22 years of service. And I was a range master for my last agency. I was a firearms instructor for 10 years, 9, 10 years, something like that. It all runs together, but I wanted to make this video to counter my original video. I'm making a video, um, kind of in counter to the video that I made. That video, and again, I'm not a professional YouTuber, but I checked it out. It garnished over 27,000 views, which for me is a little guy who never posts is it's high. I mean, I know it's not like the big YouTube channels where they're 500,000 or whatever views, but again, I'm not a professional. I'm not paid to do this. I'm just when I made that video, I was a cop and I was impressed by the P320. I had was a big part of making the decision to transition these firearms at my last agency, transition to these firearms from the Glock 17 at my last agency, which, that's full on. I think every officer that works there carries a P320 today. But, I am a person of integrity, and I'm big enough to admit when I'm wrong. And I was very wrong about this. And I will tell you why. It has a lot to do with the report that was released by the FBI ballistics team that had examined a Sig M18, which is a P320. I mean, when it comes to the FCU, aside from the safety lever, the way they function, it's all the same. There are some minor differences, but it's all the same. And if you don't know, they had some pretty interesting findings here. There were a couple of things in that report that piqued my interest and raised my level of concern. And I tested for observation some of the internal components of this firearm, which is a newer 320 FCU with a AXG grip and Sig slide. That's a Romeo 1 Pro on top there with an optic guard. So I mean, other than that, and this agency arms trigger shoe with a little safety dingus on there, which is going to do absolutely nothing to stop this gun from going off on its own. Yeah, I know, what a joke, right? But I'll tell you why. I have this firearm because of its sentimental value to me. It was gifted to me upon my retirement. Not the FCU, but the components, and I don't want to. I'm going to mothball it. I'm not going to sell it. But I am severely disappointed in Sig Sauer and how it has come to this. The other thing is that there was I'm sorry, rambling. I got back to the things that I checked out. This newer firearm here, when it came to the report, they talked about the safety lever and the sear engagement, and I, going through and looking at this example, which to be fair has a high round count. And when I say high round count, I mean 2,500 to 3,000 rounds, which, let's be honest, that is a high round count for most people. Again, I'm civilian life for me. I'm not on the range every weekend, so I've been taking time to just spend time with my family. But this firearm here, when I tested it, dry fire, safe environment, failed. The safety lever failed. I was able to replicate that failure more than once. And I noted that I had poor engagement, sear to striker engagement, and it was inconsistent. And I can't I don't want to sit here and do a long video. I'm not a professional YouTuber on exactly how I did that. I probably could. I mean, I'm not monetized, so nothing like that. But I just I could just save you some time and tell you that this firearm is a no go for duty, for concealed carry, for self defense. I mean, it's just a range toy at this point for me, and even then, I'm going to be very hesitant and careful with it out on the range, which is going to take a lot of the fun out of going to the range. But I mean, I guess you could do the Israeli carry thing because it seems like the resetting of the slide of the action promotes healthy sear engagement. If you want to, I can give you that. I'll give you that 6 hour. As long as you chamber that round every time, you're less likely to have a. As long as you rechamber that every once in a while, you're less likely to have movement or play affecting the sear engagement, which if the sear goes and the safety lever, which is a joke, that little safety lever spring is just tiny, fails, then you're gonna have an ND. I wouldn't even say ND. I would say you're just gonna have a discharge at this point because that's all it is, But we don't want that. Certainly, I don't want that for anybody else. That's why I'm removing that video with 27,000 views on it, which again for me is a pretty successful little video, because I think I made a good argument for against these guns going off on their own, and I don't want anybody coming across it and using my material to justify to themselves the purchase or retention of one of these firearms. I think it until Sig Sauer either recalls it or redesigns the system. No, yeah, and it's just a cool. It's a very expensive paperweight at this point. So there you have it. That's what I have to say. I think they could have done a better job when transitioning from the P250, which was a hammerfire double action design. If I was to get a P250 off a gun broker or something, the FCU and the slide would fit on this very expensive aluminum AXG grip frame, and you could run it that way, and it would be totally safe because the nature of the design is so different. It's apples and oranges, so different between the P250 and the 320, but they made the striker fired components fit into that double action only system, which from a business perspective makes sense. You're not going to have to spend money redesigning a new grip module system, or some parts were interchangeable with the new system. And magazines, certainly. I mean, you're talking like from a business perspective, it makes sense. We'll do a small change, and then we don't have to spark up new designer manufacturing for more parts. We'll save a lot of money. Well, I mean, sometimes, that's the motivation for. Well, I guess that is the motivation for a company anyway, to make money. I mean, what's disappointing is they Sig Sauer back in the 90s, 2000s, that era of law enforcement, the P229 chambered in 40 cal, 357 Sig, the 226, man, those were awesome firearms. The Navy SEALs carry the 226. And it was a 9mm, and it was excellent. Bulletproof had a stellar reputation behind it, and I think they rode that reputation and banked on that reputation coming along with an inferior product. And I am one of the suckers that fell for it. So now, as far as the shooting experience goes, I think I touched on this. If you saw that other video, if you haven't seen it, I'm sorry. I'm going to take it down as soon as I post this. It's gone, or as soon as I guess before I post it actually. So I'm sorry. It's not going to be there. It's just gone. All right. I'm deleting it. I do not feel comfortable having that out there in the world, knowing what I know now and feeling the way I feel about this weapon system. But I mean, as far as the shooting characteristics, the profile of this firearm, the way that it handles, the way it shoots, it's awesome. It's just great. It feels like a striker fired 226 in play. Now some people may say no, it doesn't. Well, yeah, I know it's not going to feel exactly the same. It's pretty dang close. All right, the ergonomics are very similar to a P226, and I love the 226 and 9mm. So easy transition for me, or easy for me to be an adopter of the platform. But and it's accurate. It shoots fast and flat. What more do you want? Maybe reliability, maybe safety, maybe quality control. I mean, even I myself had bad experiences with quality control on the firing pin itself. Like, I had a few of them that just broke. The tip just broke off. My buddy had one that 17 rounds in, the disconnector broke. We had one come through his shop that had I think within the first 2 or 3 rounds of a brand new M18, the extractor blew out the side. So, I mean, they definitely have had quality control issues with these things, which if you were to go back in time to 1999 and, and tell someone at Sig Sauer that, that this was going on, they wouldn't believe you because they were making tanks. They were making, I mean, not literal tanks. I mean, they were making handguns that were tough as nails. They never broke down. You didn't have to replace anything. Even bad ones ran, even ones with bad recoil springs would still run more reliably than most of the firearms at the time. And like 99% of the firearms at the time. Like, when you heard Sig Sauer, you associate that immediately with quality and supreme combat effectiveness. It was just a legend. And I think that they've really tainted that reputation with this firearm. It certainly is the case for me. I mean, I don't look at it the same way. I don't look at the company the same way. And I know somebody out there knows. I know a lot about the industry. I know a lot about the history of the company, and I know that they're not the same company because they're US based. There's a lot of different business stuff that goes on. Look, all I'm saying is they're still riding the name Sig Sauer. You can say the same thing about Indian Motorcycles. It's not the same company, but it is the same company. You know what I mean? So they banked a lot of that reputation, and at the time, I think it came about when the 2A community on YouTube especially was getting very, very popular, and there were a lot of new shooters. There were a lot of experienced shooters that were kind of like finding their place in the community, because it really wasn't. I mean, it was a loose community. You had some gun channels, some enthusiasts, some show and tell channels that would show you like the big ones were like Nut and Fancy or Hickok 45, and just out there having a good time with guns. But then it turned into something else altogether. I think people can't. You can all agree with me on that, right? I mean, it's just different than it was back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. But there were things that drove us, like gun myths. I'm going to take this here and show you real quick. It is safe. Well, it's safe because it's not loaded. All right, we got there's no magazine. Again, iPhone, one-handed here, left-handed here. I'm going to try to do the John Wick. I'll just do this. I don't care if I get my fingerprints on that. I'm not going to shoot it. The chamber is empty. There's no magazine. You can see daylight down there. We're good to go. Yep. I'm going to go ahead and dry fire it. So, one thing that we had to hang up on, for some reason, and I never got it. I mean, I didn't care about it. But, I can ask somebody, is take-up important to you? Do you remember that argument? Take-up? Is take-up important? To old 1911 shooters, it was important. They wanted that glass-breaking trigger. But who cares? Who cares? Well, I mean, Sig Sauer, to capitulate to a lot of the demands of the whoever, right? It's got a very short take-up, very light trigger, and then for whatever reason, well, it's like anything. It's like high school, man. Like people will hammer on something. It's not really that big of a deal, but the other thing was the trigger shoe, right? This one's got an Agency Arms trigger shoe on it that has a little safety dingus. That's affectionately, I think, Military Armors Channel coined that term, dingus. It's got that little thing right there, which prevents the trigger from moving to the rear. Sorry, I'm not going to do a good job on this video. But you can see it's stopping movement of the trigger until you depress the dingus. Okay? That's an inertial safety that was prevalent on the Glock. And people hated the Glock in that era. They hated the trigger. They didn't like it. It had too much take up. It was sloppy. It was nobody liked the Glock. And so I think they made it a conscious decision to say we can use it as a selling point. Okay. The other thing, so by eliminating the trigger shoe anyway. So when they did that, what they did, and this is the first generation of the 320s I'm talking about now, when they removed that inertial trigger shoe, guess what happened when you drop the gun? When you drop the gun at a certain angle, like that, okay, the inertia from the fall would cause the trigger to travel as the gun stopped traveling. So it being very light, because that's what we wanted, a light trigger with no inertial safety, because, you know, God forbid you get a callus, the firearm would go. So that made them do a voluntary upgrade and totally change the design, and I think, in my opinion, have made it less safe in doing so. The changes were drastic. They were not just to the FCU itself, but they were to the slide. You can't take a non-upgrade slide and run it on this. It won't work. All right, because of what they did with the addition of the firing pin safety, which doesn't work. The striker safety doesn't work. So there's that. And again, I'm not afraid to say that, because I don't work for Sig Sauer. Nobody gives me any money. Even if they did, I would be fired, because I'd be on here doing the same thing. I'm just that kind of guy. So it doesn't matter to me. The capitulation to those demands also led to something else, which was this firearm. When you take a Glock down, you have to point the firearm in a safe direction. You have to do this. You have to make sure that it's empty. You got to point it in a safe direction. You got to press the trigger to the rear, and you get to dry fire the firearm, and then you can rack the slide back slightly, depress the takedown levers, and the slide comes off. Well, there were cases where people, actually, I know a guy, I met a guy who used to work for investigations out here years ago that blew his finger off because he didn't know how to take a Glock down properly, and there you go. So that was a concern for some reason for a lot of people, and Glock never changed it. You still have to depress the trigger to take that slide off. So there's that. But they decided to design the FCU and the way that it, with this trigger, this safety bar that runs on the inside, so that you can take the firearm down without pressing the trigger. All right, cool. I mean, great. That's that's fine. But I mean, when they did that, they had to lower some important components. And what component do you think gets in the way? Why do you need to press the trigger typically, if this was set up like a Glock, you'd have to press the trigger for what reason? And that would be, well, because that sear is going to be up higher, it's going to be in the way. It's not going to let you move the slide back and forth. So that has been lowered down lower. So now you have this little itty bitty space between the slide and the frame, and about, what is it, 0.3 some metric measurement that it needs to travel to engage and disengage. You know who else? There's a similar, well, I'm not gonna say similar, but kind of the idea is the same on a very unpopular firearm that is 1,000% safer than this. The Springfield or HS Firearms series of handguns, the XDs. Okay, those XDs were fully cocked strikers using a sear systems. Kind of the idea is the same. I know it's not exactly the same, but it's pretty close. Where that sear was engaged in the striker, when you pressed it, it would fall. That's why it had inertial safety, grip safety. The Ultra Assurance System is what they called it. Ultra Safety Assurance System, the USA system. And but hey, that's one way to do it, where you don't hear about those things. Those haven't been going off, and they actually were fielded pretty well. You know, I saw them in law enforcement holsters, you know, in my career. So, matter of fact, the state that I'm in, the state fire marshals, the sworn staff, they still carry XD 40 Smith & Wessons to this day. It's 2025. But, you know, those are fire guys. They were different. Guns aren't important to fire guys. But, I mean, even so, you know, there it is. And I'm pretty confident that gun's going to function for them if they ever need it, and safely. I can't say the same thing about this. So those things were factors, I believe. Again, I don't have any evidence. I wasn't in the boardroom at the time, but I mean, it's kind of you can kind of see it. Because initially, I know when they were marketing this to law enforcement, when it first came out with the first gen run, we were teased that there was going to be an inertial safety on that, similar to a Glock. It never came to fruition. I never saw one in real life. I don't even know if it was it might have been, there may be prototypes out there, but I don't think that they they totally dismissed it because everybody wanted to get rid of the Glock. They hated Glock so much that they wanted to get rid of of anything that reminded them of a Glock. Anything, the tactical Tupperware there, or the FUD peer pressure, I suppose. Like if it wasn't a 1911, then it wasn't any good, So there's that. Or what was the other one? A Browning high power. You heard about Browning high powers that they would talk about them like they were the second coming, but but it's just that it's a generational thing, and I think that led to that whole that led to this. This is like if it wasn't. It was a huge factor in the way that they designed this striker firefighter, and even then, the decision to transition from the hammer fired, the original P320 design, which was well thought out, well designed for the market. It wasn't doing well because it wasn't a Glock. People hated the Glock, but they loved to shoot it, and that was the thing. It was easy to shoot. That's why it was cheap. Law enforcement officers had them, and it was cheap. It was easy to shoot. That's all you need, really. And they're reliable, ridiculously reliable, low maintenance, and you hardly ever had one break or anything. So I think that drove them to say, well, the base, our customers, the custom market we're going after, our biggest market's law enforcement, where what we need to do is hear what they have to say, and a lot of them they're gonna spew whatever hot button topic there was at the time, or hot subject at the time, which was again the dingus. Get rid of the dingus. I don't want to press the trigger when I take the firearm down, and try to make all these ideas come in to one. But they wanted to save some money, and they had existing components for the 250, and they said, why don't we just marry them together and make this little mutant here? And to their credit, the gun is phenomenal in the way it performs. It shoots flat, it shoots fast, it's as ergonomics like a 226. It's great, but it's not safe. I think they rushed, and then I think they got to a point where it's just too much to read. Is that they should. The best they could come up with when they were doing the trials for the military was to add a manual safety, and was only because it was a requirement for the modular handgun program. That's it. I don't think we would have ever seen that manual safety on that handgun if they weren't going after the military contract. So there's that. Yeah. But as far as again, my opinion, I'll double down again. It's a no-go. Mothball it. What do you do with it? Best case scenario, they do a recall. Highly unlikely. More likely, they're going to do they'll do what we call a soft recall, which is they'll start releasing till the armors will get inside information on what components they need to replace, and then for most of it, they're going to bank that a lot of people aren't even going to fire these guns, so they'll probably never see one come back for even the voluntary upgrade. There were a lot of people that just didn't do it during the drop safe issues, which I would argue is probably still there now, knowing what I know, and seeing that movement can affect the contact between the striker and the sear, and how fragile the sear engagement is. Not to mention the quality control of the components themselves, the materials made. I think this is an inferior product, unfortunately. That's about it. That's all. I think that's. I'm so mad right now, but again, I felt very compelled to make this video, especially when I saw that I had 27,000 views on that little video, and now I know that's not a lot compared to professional YouTubers, but to me it's a lot. I know musicians that have 250 views, if I didn't say that already, and they deserve way more attention than I do. But it's late. It's pushing up on midnight here, and I got a call to make to my last shop, my last cop shop there, to tell them that I highly recommend that they mothball their 320s effective immediately and redeploy their Glock 17s that they have in storage. At least until, they can solicit 6 hour for a refund or whatever they want to do, because they're heavily invested in the platform. And I feel responsible for that. And, I want to right that wrong, even though I don't work there anymore. And, I love those guys and gals, and, I'd hate for them to be the next ones on the news. Also, you know, rest in peace to the airman who was killed. I think they're speculating the 320 had a lot to do with it. I don't want to speak too much about it because I don't know the details. I don't want to. I've heard about it, but I don't know I haven't watched any videos that delve into the details of how that happened or what role the firearm played in it. I just know that it's being talked about right now. It is July 2025. So yeah, I say no go. I'm gonna do a non-recommend on this and mothball. It's unfortunate because I do love it. I love this one, you know, but I feel betrayed. And if you were with me and you purchased one of these or have several of them or whatever, we need to contact Sig Sauer. We need to email them aggressively, and we need to tell them that they need to recall these firearms and make them safe for America at the very least. So that's all I have to say. I feel like if I continue, I'm going to start swearing. So thank you for watching. You don't have to subscribe. You don't have to like. Just know that that a retired law enforcement officer who once stood up for this platform has seen the light. All right. You guys take care. 40 Cal Nevada, USA. Checking out.